Hey, what's going on, guys? Mush back at it with another video, a PC build. I saw some of you guys in the comments section hating because I haven't done a PC build in quite a while and you wanted to see me get back to that. So I've got a PC build here for you guys, a $460 AMD build, and then at the end of that, I do want to take a look at a little bit heftier of a $550 version of the same build, just some upgrades included as well. If you guys have a more lengthy budget to work with, I would go that route. However, in terms of budget PC building right now, you can actually get a really good PC, as you can see, for $464 after the mail-in rebates and whatnot, so that is a little bit of a bummer. I know that's a little bit of a hassle to work around with, but given the performance that you're getting with this build, I think it will be quite worth it. So without further ado, let's get right into this and let's kick things off with the CPU. I did go with the AMD Ryzen 3 2200G 3.5 GHz quad-core processor. Now, what's great about this CPU right now is it comes at a great price. In terms of the Ryzen 3 CPUs, this is without a doubt the cheapest. Even the Ryzen 3 1200 is like $120, and this one's better, has integrated graphics that can actually work as a legitimate backup. No, it's not going to be your dedicated graphics solution. However, if your GPU does go wrong, it's always nice to have a backup, and you're getting that with the Ryzen 3 2200G. Standard performance as far as the CPU goes, it's a quad-core CPU, 3.5 GHz. It's going to work very, very well in even the latest games. Walmart.com has it for $88, and if you would like to go the Amazon route, it is only $95. They're a great entry-level CPU. Again, 3.5 GHz stock, and then 3.7 turbo, a great entry-level CPU. If you want to go a little bit higher end, honestly, I wouldn't even consider it because the Ryzen 5 is like nearly double the price of this CPU. I think I saw it for like $140, $150. Just not worth it at that point. If you are on a budget, I would just stick to the 2200G, and if you do have some extra funds, put that towards the GPU, if anything. Moving on from that, we have the motherboard, the ASRock B450 Pro 4 ATX AM4 motherboard, so a standard size board, and Newegg has got a great price on this, $80 base. However, there is a $15 off mail-in rebate, knocking it down to just $65, which is quite good. This is a fully sized motherboard. Again, 4 RAM slots, DDR4 3200 supported, 64 gigabytes of max memory, and you're gonna get everything you need. There are some cheaper options available, some B350 boards. However, a lot of them have 2 RAM slots, and I wanted to get 4 RAM slots just so we have that upgrade path available. Not much more to add. A solid motherboard, not breaking the bank. That's really what you want out of a budget build. Honestly, if we could go a little bit cheaper, if I could hook you guys up with like a $50 MOBO, that would be ideal. But $65 is the best that you're really going to get for a quality board, especially one with 4 RAM slots. And again, you do have to pay $80 out of pocket, but take advantage of that MIR and you will get it a little bit cheaper. Moving on from that, RAM is very important, and RAM is also very pricey these days, but G-Skill Ripjaws V-Series 8GB, 2 4GB sticks at DDR4 2800 memory is the route to go right now. $55 isn't crazy for this. I would like it a little bit cheaper. I remember the good old days when we were still getting DDR3 RAM, but you could get 8GB of RAM for like $38. Those were the days. However, those days are long gone, and now $56, not breaking the bank by any means, but more expensive than I would like it to be, and it is 2800 megahertz, which is ideal, especially for Ryzen series CPUs, but 8GB of RAM as a whole isn't completely ideal. You would like to have 12GB, you would ideally like to have 16GB, however, 8GB is a good starting point. There aren't too many games that are really being hindered on having 8GB of RAM. 16GB will enhance a lot of games, as you'll see by recommended requirements these days. You're seeing more and more games recommend 16GB of RAM, but usually minimum will still be a lot of times 4GB. More often than not these days it will be 8GB of RAM, so 8GB has really become the new 4GB in terms of the minimum that you can get in any gaming build. I would never recommend at this point in 2019 to get 4GB of RAM. That just really isn't feasible anymore, but 8GB of RAM being relatively cheap, this G-Skill kit is pretty good. $56 isn't all too bad. Moving on from that, storage is always a very interesting debate. Do you go with an SSD? Do you just go with a hard drive? In the case of the $460 route, I would just get a hard drive. The good old Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB is available for around $45, $47 on Newegg. This is a standard 1TB hard drive. I mean, we've been recommending this since the dawn of time pretty much. It's a 1TB drive. That's enough storage space, I think, for most people. For people like me that do download a lot of games, maybe you want to go with a 2TB route, and I'm sure you can find a relatively cheap Seagate 2TB drive, but I think the majority of you guys are in the boat of 1TB being more than enough, especially because, of course, you can delete, re-download games. that's not a big deal. Ideally, of course, you would like to get an SSD, and as you guys are going to see with the $550 option, SSDs are really cheap. If you want to get a 120GB SSD, which will essentially be for your OS and the absolute key applications, you can get one for really, really cheap. However, it will put us over that $460 threshold. However, I would highly recommend it just on the basis of how cheap it is. You can still get away with a standard Caviar Blue 1TB that can load up your OS no problem. And for the majority of people, again, 1TB is going to be more than enough, but game file sizes are increasing. You look at a game like Final Fantasy 15, that game is what, north of 100 gigabytes. If you download the 4K texture pack, it gets even bigger. There's DLC coming out for the game, so you get the idea. You look at games like The Division 2, that's going to be a huge download, so games are getting bigger and bigger, but not to the point where a terabyte isn't feasible. Moving on from that, let's talk the GPU. The GPU, AMD is really the only option, especially for a budget-minded gamer. Nvidia should really be embarrassed at their budget offerings right now because they're getting absolutely whipped by AMD in terms of value per dollar. Now, Nvidia might still be ahead in terms of how these GPUs perform commercially, just because AMD kind of has that negative label to it. I think that's completely wrong, but hey, it is what it is, and I definitely noticed that. However, the RX 570 4GB for $130, it's $150 on Newegg, $20 mail-in rebate. That is a tremendous deal. 1080p gaming with the 570 is definitely feasible. It's not going to be able to run every game at elite settings and elite performance at 1080p. Of course, there are games like Metro Exodus, which a lot of you guys aren't even buying at this point, just because it's an Epic Store exclusive, but nonetheless, the higher-end games do struggle a little bit at even 1080p. However, the majority of games, even a game like The Witcher 3, you can play that at a mix of high to ultra settings. You can easily hit a high frame rate depending on how you tweak the settings, and you will just be getting an extremely high-level experience. On top of that, $130 after the mail-in rebate, you get 2 free games with it, and the options you can get Division 2, Devil May Cry 5, or Resident Evil 2. Those are some damn good games, given how Resident Evil 2 and Devil May Cry 5 are being received. Those are games that most PC gamers, when they're buying a PC, they want to get. Devil May Cry 5 is one of the most popular games on Steam right now. Resident Evil 2 was one of the most popular when it released back in January. Getting both those games on top of the 570, that's great. If you want a multiplayer game, you can get the Division 2 instead. If you value that pack at around, $80, which I don't think is too crazy, that kind of means you get the GPU for $50, which is absurd when you think about it that way. I know it's not completely accurate to look at it that way, but look at Nvidia's options. I believe Nvidia is giving out like Fortnite game packs with their GPUs. So would you rather a Fortnite game pack, or would you rather Devil May Cry 5 and Resident Evil 2 or The Division 2? I think that option is pretty clear, and just generally speaking from a value standpoint, AMD is just whipping Nvidia, and the 570 is golden proof of that. Again, $130 is great for it. These prices do tend to fluctuate. I saw an ASRock 570 available for $130 as well, and I think it was $130 flat. That wasn't even with the mail-in rebate taken into account. I saw that at Newegg. Don't know if that deal is still available, but just keep your guys' eyes open, and you can score some really good deals on 570s and 580s. Moving on from that, the case I probably went a little bit overboard on. Honestly, if you want to cheap out on the case a little bit, and then you could probably almost squeeze in an SSD, not necessarily, but the Roswell Challenger S is available for $50 flat. I saw the $200, that was $60, and that's just not worth it. What you really want out of a case from a budget level is just something simple yet aesthetically pleasing. You don't want to get a window because you're not trying to go balls to the walls and trying to make your PC look super cool at a $460 budget. I'm sure if you try really, really hard, you can make your PC look really cool, but at a $460 budget, we are only concerned about performance, and with a Challenger, it kind of houses everything pretty nicely. Again, if you want to go a little bit cheaper, I saw some okay options at around the $35 to $40 range, but the Challenger S is generally pretty well received, so I thought $50 for a case like this is pretty worth it, and for a mid-tower case, not a bad price at all. And lastly, for the power supply in this build, I went with the Corsair VS 650 watt 80 plus certified ATX power supply. Now, some of you guys might be thinking, why are you getting a 650 watt power supply? That is overkill for something like an RX 570. Well, there is a VS 450 available right now, but that is only $27 after a mail-in rebate. This is $31 after an MIR, so why not just get 200 extra watts? I mean, it's $4 more. I don't think that's a big deal. If you want to upgrade your GPU in the future, you're going to be thanking me that you got the 650 watt version, because 450 watts at the end of the day is going to be a little bit limiting. Even then, 450 watts can get you by with even some of the higher end GPUs. It's just like 650 watts is going to give you a little bit more headroom, and for $4, why not just go that route? So I thought that was pretty self-explanatory, and again, that wraps up the $460 build. Pretty good stuff here with a 570 and a Ryzen 3 2200G. If you're gaming at 1080p, you are going to be getting some sick performance based on how much money you are spending. Again, around $460 after the mail-in rebate, so not bad at all. However, if you guys have some extra money, I do have a $550 version for you guys. Here we go. So not a lot of changes made to this. I didn't even upgrade the CPU just because, again, the Ryzen 5 is just super expensive. Yeah, let's just show you guys how much it is right now. So we still have the 2200G right here. Let's go to the Ryzen 5. So you guys are seeing Ryzen 5 1400, $135. If you're looking to get the 1600, that's $143, $145 for the 1500X, $165 for the 2600. Just relatively expensive for that, so I would just recommend to stick with the 2200G. Let's see if I can add that back. So $88 for the 2200G is pretty insane, but the changes we do made, of course, add an SSD. This Kingston A4 120GB SSD is literally $20 on Amazon. That's why even if you're getting that 460 build, I would just get the SSD, fit in that extra $20. I don't know, skip out on the Subway sandwiches for a couple of days, and then you can fit this SSD in, because 120GB SSD for $20, that's just gonna help out the overall performance of your rig. I would bump it up to an RX 580. Some of you guys might see it as a little bit of a bottleneck. That's not necessarily the case. $180 for the 8GB version is really good. That's going to enhance your 1080p performance and even allow you to push a little bit of 1440p. I hesitate to say that it's really going to be centered around 1440p, but if for whatever reason you find a 1440p monitor which in the case of being on a budget like this, you're probably not having a 1440p monitor, but just in case, it could do it with some of the titles. But ideally, at 1080p, it's going to do really, really well. And again, we stick with the VS650, and that's going to complement the 580 quite a bit. After mail-in rebate, this actually ends up being $535, so you could probably even bump up the SSD to 240GB if you want to go that route. You got an extra $15 to work with if you do have a $550 budget. So that's going to conclude this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I think I was able to thoroughly explain all of my decisions. A really solid time to be building a PC, even if you are on a tight budget, which a year ago, that really wasn't the case. So that's going to conclude this video. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, leave all your thoughts in the comment section down below, and if you guys want to see any different price ranges, leave that in the comments as well, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out. Hey, what's going on, guys? Mush here again. Hope you enjoyed the video. As you guys might know, YouTube's notification system is sometimes a little bit wonky, even if you're subscribed to the channel. Maybe you're not abundantly aware that I uploaded a video. To remedy that situation, make sure you hit the bell notification button. This way, whenever I upload a new video, and I try to upload as consistently as possible, you will be notified directly of the upload, and you can watch it as soon as it goes live. I would really appreciate if you guys hit that button so you can stay up to date with all of the content I'm posting. But as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.